you're doing, it's amazing how much you can achieve. If ever you come and visit my monastery in Australia, most of those buildings I built myself. I learned how to lay bricks. It was one brick at a time. And here I was, a meditator, wasting my time laying bricks. It wasn't a waste of time at all. I thought at first that, can't our lay people actually do this job for us so I can do some more meditation or teaching? But it wasn't a waste of time, because when I was laying bricks, I gave it everything I've got. I was one-pointed, I was mindful of the task at hand. And I found once I finished doing the physical labour, I went down to sit meditation. I was straight into the meditation very deeply. First of all, it really surprised me. I thought I was wasting my time, just labouring. It was the way I was laying those bricks. By being one-pointed, focusing on the task, which is called samadhi, and being very mindful. In laying bricks, I was building up my mindfulness. I was building up my one-pointedness. In a moment, one task at a time. And that carried on to when I sat on my meditation cushion. Seamlessly. If you know how to meditate, you can lay bricks very perfectly. If you know how to meditate, you can write that letter so clearly. If you know how to meditate, you can get that deal done. You can win that contract very easily. Try it. Yeah?
Okay, my fourth question is regarding jhana. I think I heard the sutta regarding jhana. Another word is trance. But in Chinese, when we say trance, we will believe in Xiang Tong, when they move a lot. So, is it the same thing, or is it? And if it's not, what is the difference?
Okay, the main difference, in a trance you have no mindfulness. Usually another being takes over your body in a trance. You invite someone else in. In these jhanas, your mindfulness is intense, incredibly powerful. So no other being can come close to you in a jhana. I mentioned this morning about monks in jhana. They cannot be burned. They cannot be harmed or hurt at all. You've got incredible protection and power. My goodness, people can't come close to you in those states. So there's a huge amount of difference. In the jhanas, you're very safe, very protected. You come out with incredible power and bliss. In a trance, you come out just as you did before, maybe even a bit dull and disorientated, because the mindfulness was not there. That's the main difference.
Mindfulness, does it mean that, this is my fifth question, the last one. Mindfulness, does it mean that there is a one-pointed oneness in your meditations? Or
there's many different levels of mindfulness. Ordinary mindfulness moves around so fast from one thing to another. It never spends long enough on anything to really understand it fully. It's one of the reasons why we have delusions, why we misunderstand things. We never really stop to fully see. It's one of the reasons why we do need that stillness to see deeply. And I will tell you about that tomorrow with wisdom. It's only in the deep meditations that mindfulness becomes strong and still. When we talk about this one-pointed business, I like to emphasize it's not one-pointed in space as much as one-pointed in time. Because we think about one-pointedness as focused in space. We don't understand it's focused in time as well. In this incredible, powerful present moment. Absolutely still in time. That's what means one-pointedness. But it's one-pointedness in its factors. There are 5 factors, but they are one. I know in Vajrayana, and in Mahayana, we talk a lot about non-duality. Not two. This is the only time in your experience you experience the meaning of non-duality. Because this is the first time there is a oneness of experience. Something which doesn't change for many hours. Where that you are so close to what you're experiencing, you've fully merged, the knower and the known, are literally just so close together, it is a oneness. You come out afterwards and you say non-dual. Now I know what that means. That's why it's called ekaggata. Not just one pointedness of mind. Another meaning is a oneness, a non-duality of your experience.
Thank you so much.
Okay, anytime. Yes. So can devas attain jhanas? Why can't devas attain jhanas? If a deva did attain a jhana, there's many levels of devas. If it's a lower realm devas and they attain a jhana, they would immediately leave that realm and attain the higher realms. Just the attainment of jhana by themselves would be an advancement up the rung of heavenhood, if you like. There are some devas who do attain jhanas, such as Mahabrahma. In the suttas, there was this wonderful little story about this monk who gained a psychic powers to visit the Deva realms and had this question, where do the four elements cease without remainder? And he couldn't find anyone to answer that question, so he went up to the first level of Devas, which is the realm of the four great kings. And they said, listen, we don't know the answer to that question, but there's another group of Devas more superior than us, who are called the heaven of the 33. Go up and ask them. So he went to ask them. He asked Sakka, who was the king of these Devas of the 33, and he said, I don't know the answer to that question, but there's the Yama Devas who are above us. Maybe they will know. So he went to see the Yama Devas. They said, we don't know, but there are the Devas of those who, who delight in creations, in the Manarati Devas. Ask them. They said, we don't know, but there's the Devas above us, Parinimata Wasawati Devas. They might know. And so they went up to them and said, we don't know, but there's Mahabrahma. He will know. The Devas of the in companionship with Brahma, they might know. So they went up into this Brahma realm, this lower Brahma realm, those who live in companionship with Brahma. And they said, we don't know, but Mahabrahma, God will know. And he said, where is he? He said, we don't know where he is, but every now and again as a great light appears, and out of that light comes Mahabrahma. You know what that light is again? Nimitta. Because this Mahabrahma goes in and out of first jhana. When he comes out, he's visible to his retinue. And so after a while, Mahabrahma appeared out of the nimitta. You go in through the nimitta, you come out through the nimitta into the jhanas. And this monk asked him, where do the four elements cease without remainder? And Brahma said, I am Brahma, the firstborn, the creator, the Lord of all is. And the monk said, I never asked you that. I asked you, where do the four elements cease without remainder? And Mahabrahma says, I am God, the firstborn, the creator of all that is, the Lord of everything. I didn't ask you that. Where do the four elements cease without remainder? Read it in the sutta, it's very funny. And Mahabrahma takes the monk by the arm and leads him aside and says, shh, I don't know the answer to that. But these people, they think I'm smart, so no, I don't want them to know. And anyway, monk, you're a very foolish monk. Down where you came from, there's a great Buddha. Ask him. That's very, very cheeky, but it's a very fascinating little sutta there. So the Devas, Mahabrahma actually does go in and out of jhana, but only the first jhana. He doesn't know more than that. But if the Deva does go into the jhanas, like if, for example, if it's the Deva of the realm of the 33, if they can press the letting go button and they go into those jhanas, they would completely disappear from that realm. And they get a reappearance, and they stay in those jhana realms for a long time. Basically, they pass away from one realm, and they reappear in the higher realm. I hope that makes sense. But that's what happens. Yeah? Ah. Okay, it's a good question, and this is a great point of controversy. Those two early teachers were Alara Kalama and Udaka Rama Putta. What it says in the text is they had some sort of attainment. First of all, Alara Kalama had the attainment of nothingness, and Udaka Rama Putta, or rather he was a disciple of Uddaka Rama. Uddaka Ramaputta means a disciple of Rama the Uddakan. He said his teacher used to have the state of neither perception nor non-perception. Now the anomaly is, the question which many people ask, is that if those teachers had practiced jhana, and if the Bodhisattva had practiced those jhanas, why had the Buddha to recollect the jhana under the rose apple tree and not the jhana under those two teachers? Also, why was it the Buddha said that, actually the day was said, and it was repeated by Ananda, the Buddha discovered the jhanas, not Alara Kalama Uddaka Ramaputta? The only feasible explanation is this, that Uddaka Ramaputta, Alara Kalama, did not practice the jhanas, nor the arupa states. But what they had there was almost like an echo of those original states. In the same way that even today, because we talk about jhanas and because they're such an important part of the path, 2,500 years since the time of the Buddha, some people teach jhanas, but they're not the real thing. They're not true jhanas, they're something much, much, much less. Simple wishful thinking means we want those jhanas so much, we make do with something which the Buddha would never say qualifies. It's very similar to university degrees. The degree which I got was much harder to get than university degrees these days. The standard has gone down. Even the degree which I got, the standard had gone down over the last 50, 60 years. A good example of that is PhDs, doctorates. In the universities of Europe, 200, 300 years ago, they would issue one doctorate maybe every 6 or 7, 10 years maybe, in the whole university. To get a doctorate, to be a PhD, maybe 200 years ago, you really had to be special. Now you can order one by post from American universities. I think even I did read an article, I don't know if it's true, in Italy, that even if you got a BA, you can call yourself a doctor. The standard always goes down because of demand, desires. And the thesis which I have, which many monks agree with now, is what Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta taught, were just a watered down version of those states. They weren't based on the jhanas. Number 2, to attain those jhanas, you have to walk the middle path. That middle path was so unrecognizable that the first 5 ascetics thought the Buddha had actually given up all possibility of attaining anything. The middle path, as the Buddha walked it, was not at all popular. Otherwise, those 5 ascetics would have recognized it and would have stayed with the Buddha. He was being radical, he was finding a new path, not something which Uddaka Ramaputta and Alara Kalama had practiced. And I'm pretty convinced that Uddaka Ramaputta and Alara Kalama, they hadn't any jhanas at all, nor did those incredibly refined immaterial attainments. They weren't the real thing. No more than a doctorate by post is a real doctorate. It's just the same in name, but not in actual essence. Otherwise, there's too many contradictions in the text. And that's a valid proposition. It's a great question. We talk about that a lot. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, it's almost 5. No, last question, 5 to 10. No, we've got 2 questions. The last 2 questions then. Come on. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. I'm Mr. Go. I have 2 questions. So plus maybe 1 question.
Well, we can allow 3 because everything's done by 3s in Buddhism.
First question is, how do you explain when the snake is in hibernation during winter? In other words, is it another form of meditation? Second is the issue of reincarnation. Thank you.
Okay, the first one is like hibernation, was it? Hibernation, is that some type of meditation? Because I'm not having had a recent rebirth as a hibernating. I'm not quite sure. I can't answer that question. I don't really think so, because those animals, if they came out from hibernation, they'd be just so blissed out of their little furs that they'd sort of be jumping up and down instead of like being sleepy when they come out. I know that the snakes which come out from hibernation in Australia, they are not they don't look like happy. They're very hungry and they're very aggressive. The chances are no. With reincarnation, this is one of the advantages, the results of getting into deep meditation. I will mention this tomorrow in the insights talk about seeing things as they truly are. Reincarnation may be a theory, you can take it or leave it, believe it or not, because you haven't got all the evidence. The Buddha said there is a way of finding out for yourselves in this very life. Pachatang veditabo vinyuhi, to be seen each wise person for themselves. If you get even into the nimitta, you see what the citta is, what the mind is. You know it is not dependent upon the body. The body and the five senses have disappeared when that mind appears. You can understand just from that much, if you've got enough insight, enough intelligence, that mind will not die, will not disappear when the body dies. Because the body dying is just the same. The body and the five senses are disappearing, they're turning off. And any of you who have had near-death experience or known other people who had near-death experience or read the books about near-death experience, when you die, you float out of your body and you go towards the light. That's a nimitta. Exactly the same. So in this meditation, you're having a rehearsal for death. So you're actually finding out what happens and why it happens. You're doing a laboratory experiment about death. And so it's very common that people who have nimittas, and if they reflect upon it afterwards and gain insight, will understand as a fact that rebirth happens, and they will know why. That's the insight which comes up. Alternatively, if you have those nimittas, or you go further and get into a jhana, when you come out, your mind is so powerful, you can ask yourself the question, what is my earliest memory? And you can recollect your past lives. It's not that difficult to do. So you can actually know for a fact who you were in the past, what you were doing, what your name was. Just like in the time of the Buddha, just like the 25 centuries since, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen have been doing this meditation, and they recollect their past lives. So the reincarnation is no longer a theory, it is a verifiable fact. It's a scientific fact. I was a scientist. The definition of a scientific fact is it can be verifiable. Someone else can repeat the experiment and find the same result. Meditation is the experiment which you do. If you follow the instructions, you will get the same result. That's why it qualifies as a scientific truth. Okay, there's one last question.
Reverend, nowadays many popular Vipassana school will be teaching that we observe the abdomen rising and falling to get into the jhanas and insights. Is this true?
Okay, you can observe the abdomen rising and falling to get into jhanas, again insight. You can start anywhere to get into jhanas. It's amazing what people can do. They can start in all sorts of places. They can do mantras. They can do the mantra on Amitabha and get into a jhana. Whatever you start from, as long as you let go of the time, let go of the past and the future, eventually let go of thinking, you let go of the five senses and the body, then the jhanas start to occur. Where you start from is irrelevant. It's what you do on the way. You abandon the five hindrances, focus on the mind, the jhanas happen. It's all stages of letting go. You start letting go of one thing, letting go of another thing, letting go of another thing. Once you've let go enough, there you are, that's the jhanas. These are not attainments. If it's attainments, it's what you get. The jhanas are measured not by what you get, but by what you've given up. That's why they are stages of letting go. We meditate not to get things, we meditate to give up things. Please understand that, and you understand the path into the jhanas and what they are. If you're trying to get things, you're going in the opposite direction. If you're trying to abandon things, you're going in the right direction. And the jhanas happen. So this is the path of letting go, and now it comes the time to let you go. I'm going to detach from you, I'm going to renounce you, and just like my 5 senses disappear, you are now all going to disappear. Goodbye. Sadhu, sadhu. Now we do this sharing of merits. It's been a very deep and powerful talk. It's great merit this evening for listening to this talk. So let's share the merits. Idam me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Idam me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Idam me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. Okay, good night everybody. Now's the time for you to vanish.